there, this is Miss Elise from Cape Fear Botanical Garden, and today I am joined here by our pal Carlos for Turtle Tales. We are going to learn all about his little duckling friends here in the pond at the garden today. Today's story is called Mommy, Is That You? By Atsuko Morozumi. Mrs. Duck had 4 eggs in her little house under the willow tree. One spring day, a gust of wind picked up her house and threw it high into the air. The nest flew in the wind until it landed on someone's back with a plunk. Oh, Carlos, it looks just like you. The eggs cracked open and 4 little ducklings were born. "Hello," they said. "Are you our mommy?" "Certainly not," said the tortoise. So the ducklings set off to find their mommy. First they met someone soft and fluffy. "Are you our mommy?" they asked. "Dear me, no," growled the dog. The ducklings left in a hurry. The 4 little ducklings were just taking a rest when somebody walked by with lots of little babies just like them. "She must be Mommy," they cried. "I'm sorry," said the hen, "but I'm not your mommy." Next, the ducklings came to a pond. Someone was splashing in the water. "Are you our mommy?" they called out. "Certainly not," said the fish as she swam away. The ducklings decided to go for a swim too. They were happily splashing about when one of them swam smack into a white fluffy back. "Quackity quack, what's that?" a voice said. A lovely duck turned around looking at them all with a big smile. "Mommy!" Mrs. Duck took her ducklings home. Their little house was back in its place underneath the willow tree, and the little ducks happily followed their mommy inside. The end. Okay, so that was a great story about some ducklings looking for their mom. And ducklings are baby ducks, which is a type of bird. So today we're going to talk a little bit about birds. What makes birds special? What makes them different from other animals? Well, I usually think of birds and their wings. They have these wings that help them fly. Some birds don't fly, like penguins or ostriches or emus, but they still have wings, which is pretty cool. And birds are also really special in that they're covered in feathers, unlike fur, which you find on animals like cats or coyotes or bunnies. They all have fur. Birds have feathers, which are very special. And there are actually 2 kinds of feathers. So I have some examples here. These are not from ducks like the birds in our story, but they are from animals, from birds that we actually have in the garden. So these are turkey vulture feathers. Here, let me get a good shot of these. So these are from a bird called a turkey vulture. It's a very large bird, much larger than the ducklings in our story. And these are actually called flight feathers. So these feathers, as one would guess, help the birds fly. So these either came from the wings or from their tails. We don't know for sure. And you'll notice these are really big because they're from a big bird. So most birds have these flight feathers kind of rigid. They have different shapes and different textures depending on the type of bird, depending on what the bird does, like if it lives in water, like a duck does, or if it doesn't live in water, like a vulture doesn't live in water. And then there's actually a second type of feather. And this is really tiny, so I'm going to hold it up. These are called down feathers, and they're really soft and fluffy. And baby birds are actually born with these, or they develop them while they're still in the nest, while they're still really young, and then gradually they lose them until they develop their very own flight feathers so they can go fly. Right. So what else is special about birds? Well, they all have the same life cycle. They all start with eggs. And I actually have a picture here. This is not a duck life cycle, but this is a robin life cycle. So the mama bird lays the eggs, usually in a nest, and then the egg hatches, and out comes a little hatchling. They call them hatchlings when they've just hatched. And then you have the little chicks that are all hungry and waiting for food, like in this picture. Some people also call them nestlings because they're still living in the nest and they're still relying on their parents to feed them and make them safe. And then eventually they start to lose those down feathers and they develop their flight feathers, and then they're called fledglings as they're getting ready to fly. And their first flight they ever take is called a fledge. It's a fun little fact. So after they've lost all their down and they can fly and they've left the nest, then that's when they're an adult bird, like in this case a robin, or in our story a duck, and then they're ready to start the cycle all over again. It's like a big circle. And that is the life cycle of a bird, and all birds have this life cycle. They all come from eggs, which is pretty cool. So we talked about feathers, different types of feathers. I also, really quick, just want to show you some examples of ducks that you actually find in North Carolina. So around here, where's a good one? This first one I want to show you guys is super common. Lots of people see these ducks around in the water. And ducks are called waterfowl. They're a specific type of bird because they live in water and they have these cute little webbed feet that helps them swim in the water. And this is a mallard duck. So very common. You see these guys on ponds all over the state and all over the country actually. Have these nice green heads. So the male mallard duck has these green heads. And I have a picture of their chicks, really, really cute ducklings with the mama. This is what they look like when they're ducklings, and there's the mama duck. You can see they're covered in that soft down feathers that we talked about. Very soft, but they'll lose those eventually and look like their mom or like their dad. All right. And another type of duck, because we have so many different kinds with different colors, different shapes of their heads, this is a really cool one called a wood duck. The wood duck is, you can see, is lots of beautiful colors. You've got green, kind of a rainbowy sheen right there. This would probably help them blend in really well around a pond with plants and the sunlight on the water. So that's a really cool example of a duck right there. You can kind of see his webbed feet. And then these are called hooded mergansers. These are really interesting looking ducks. You can see that. And this is cool because you get to see a boy duck, a boy merganser, and a girl merganser. So that's the boy. He has this bright white spot on his head, bright yellow eyes, and then that's the girl. She has a little bit of white and brown, but it's not super white like his. So that's pretty cool. And ducks, not only do they have lots of beautiful colors, but they're actually really cool in that they're kind of waterproof. So they have a special gland that produces oil, and then when they're cleaning, it's called preening. When they preen, they get that oil from that gland and they spread it all over their feathers, and it actually creates a barrier between their feathers and the water. And so they don't get waterlogged or soggy, and they can just kind of swim and float on that water really well. So it's a really cool thing that they do. Yep, and that's all about ducks and birds. Okay, so now it's craft time, and our first craft, we are gonna make our very own duck pond. So what you'll need is a large piece of green construction paper or green cardstock. That's gonna be your lawn around the pond. And then you're gonna need blue construction paper or blue printer paper, or if you don't have that, you could even color a piece of white paper blue and cut it out in the shape of a pond, so kind of round. You can get creative with it however you'd like it to be shaped. You're also going to make lily pads out of green construction paper, or you can color white paper green. And those are basically little circle shapes, and you do a little cutout, almost like a little Pac-Man mouth. Then that's gonna be kind of like a lily pad. And I did 3 on my pond. I did a big one and 2 little ones. If you want to get really fancy, you can also make grass or plants out of construction paper or felt, or even if you had your own like pieces of grass or pine needles, you could glue those onto your cardstock or colored paper as well. Just anything to kind of dress it up a little bit. This is construction paper that I just took a scissors and kind of did like that, like a little fringe, almost like you're cutting hair. And I just glued those around the pond. You could add flowers, anything you want really. And for the ducks themselves, most people should hopefully have this at home, so it should be a pretty easy to do craft. But this is from an egg crate. And yeah, an empty egg crate that we recycled or we reused for crafts. So we just cut up little egg, where the individual eggs were, we just cut those up. And then we painted them yellow. I actually used 2 different kinds of yellow because I wanted to see how they'd turn out. I get a really bright yellow and then like a lemon yellow. And then I made little beaks out of orange construction paper, just did a little triangle, glued that on, drew on 2 little eyes, and made a little hole in the back of the egg carton. I had a little sharp little blade, but you could probably use like a pencil or something just to stick a little hole back there. And then I threaded a feather through. So craft feathers worked really well for this. Just had some yellow craft feathers. You could do white too, since ducklings have that white fluffy down and orange or yellow down. Yeah, and I just made 4 of those. You could make however many you'd like, maybe 1 for each kid or something like that would be really fun. You can individualize them, make them your own. Yeah, so it's a really fun craft, and it's good because it can kind of take up some time because there's lots of parts, so it's a good long craft there. So for our next craft, this is a really fun, easy craft to do. We're gonna make duck masks. So I actually Googled free downloadable duck mask or something like that, and this is one of the first results. And this you can actually cut out, you print it, cut it out, make little holes for eyes, and punch a hole in each side to add thread. And then you can actually just hold it up and tie it and wear it like that. That's kind of a fun one. And I found one that was already yellow, but they also had a version that you could color in yourself. So that would be a really fun alternative, is you could all decorate your own masks and wear those. So that was a fun one, but if you want to get really creative, you can make your very own out of recycled materials. So I used half of a paper plate, and I also glued a popsicle stick on the side so you'd have something to hold it with. Painted them both yellow, cut out a beak out of orange construction paper, and then I just went crazy with decorating. You could really do whatever you want. I added craft feathers and glitter so that it would look kind of fun and like a little duck. So making masks is a really fun activity to do at home. It's pretty easy, and hopefully you have all the materials for it already. All right, so for our final craft, we are gonna make our very own bird's nests. This is a really fun one to do because you might have these natural materials already, maybe in your backyard, if you have one, or your front yard, or out in a park. So what I did is I took some clay, some air dry clay, but you could also use Play-Doh or Model Magic or something like that. And I formed the shape of a nest. So I made it kind of flat on the bottom and rounded the sides. And then I added natural materials. So birds in the wild, they can make their nests out of all kinds of stuff, depending on the type of bird. Hummingbirds have been known to use things like spider webs, which is really cool. But you don't have to use spider webs. You could use leaves, pine needles. I have a lot of those in my yard, so that would be a really easy one to use. Little bits of fur. Maybe you have a pet dog who sheds a lot. You could use little bits of fur, or even your own hair if you wanted to. You could do that too. So really just get creative with it and make a bird's nest. Okay, thank you so much for joining us for Turtle Tales this week. Please tune in next week. We'll do another story time with Carlos. And please also check out our new guide available on the website for download called 200 Ways to Explore Nature in Your Home or Backyard. Thanks so much. Bye.